This is The Long Road to Publishing, the podcast where we hear from authors who have traveled a long and bumpy road to publishing their books. Whether you're just starting out on your own writing and publishing journey, or if you're all too aware of the many possible detours along the way, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Eva Langston, author, writing instructor, and creator of Eva's newsletter for writers on Substack. Thank you so much for coming along on the ride. Get ready to be wowed by today's guest, Vanessa Riley, who has a bio like you would not believe. Now, when traditional publishers didn't think there was a market for historical fiction featuring Black female leads, which is what Vanessa writes, she decided to, as she says, become her own publisher and prove that the readers were there. She was so successful that now Vanessa's books are traditionally published with the Big Five, and she has traded her engineering day job for being a full-time author. It's an incredible story. I can't wait for you to hear it. Because Vanessa has so many books, like really a lot, I'm not going to put them all in my bookshop shop. However, I will put her newest releases and most popular books there, and you can visit her website to see her full list of titles. Just follow the link in the show notes. Before we get started, a reminder to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and spread the word about the long road to publishing far and wide. Also, if you're interested in being a guest on the show, you can find the pitch form in the show notes. And now, on with the episode, which I'm calling I Became My Own Publisher. Vanessa Riley is an award-winning author of over 29 novels, including Island Queen, a GMA Buzz Pick, Queen of Exiles, ABC's The View's Lit Pick, and the Lady Worthington Mystery Series, which won the 2024 Georgia Author of the Year for Mystery. With a doctorate from Stanford University and other engineering degrees from Penn State, Vanessa brings a research-oriented approach to her inclusive storytelling, which spotlights hidden narratives of Black women and women of color, emphasizing power, sisterhoods, and family sagas across historical fiction, romance, and mystery genres. Wow, what a bio! Welcome to the Long Road to Publishing, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me, Eva.
Yes, I am so interested to hear the saga behind all of these many novels. But before we do that, your most recent novel, Fire, Sword, and Sea, just came out in January. And I see it. It is gorgeous. And I
Thank
know
you.
it's about female pirates, but do you
Yes,
want to give us a little elevator pitch?
absolutely. So this has been coined by Allie Hazelwood and Victoria Christopher Murray as the pirate story you didn't know you need.
Ooh.
It's set in the 1600s where women had a very prescribed role. You could either be a wife or a wench, or as a friend said, a hoe or a housewife. And there were women with dreams who wanted more, and piracy was legal in the 1600s. So it was a career option.
That is fascinating.
So they're dressing up as men and embodying the life and becoming parts of crew. And we follow Jacot Delahaye, who rises from just being a part of the crew to actually a pirate captain. So it's an amazing thing. It's about women's leadership, women's friendships, and if you feel powerless and you feel like your dreams are slipping away, you can always fight and win. And I think people will be inspired by
Oh, yes, that sounds like the pirate story I didn't know I needed.
it.
That's so interesting. I know a lot of writers say, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was little." But when do you feel like you got serious and you were like, "I'm going to write books and get them published"?
I didn't get serious until after college.
Okay.
I'd always been a writer. So, earliest memories, my mom is the literature woman. She's making sure we're into Austen and Shakespeare and Baldwin and Angelou and, all the greats. And my father's from Trinidad and Tobago, from Port of Spain, and he's the storyteller. Little girl, let me tell you the story about these women rising up. I was the only daughter, and so he made sure he poured that piece into me. But I'm on the math team and the science team, and my mama sits me down one day and she's like, "Baby, you always need to be able to pay your bills." She knew that writing life can be highs and lows and all over the place. But she's absolutely right. Engineering will pay the bills. So kids, go get your engineering degrees. And I had a storied career. I worked for NASA, General Motors, Hewlett Packard, a lot of different startups. But you always still have that thing in you that wants to write. And I remember one of my favorite bosses was like, Vanessa, this report on die-cast manufacturing is way too interesting.
Uh-huh.
So, literally, I'm pregnant with my daughter, having a difficult pregnancy. Doctor
Hmm.
said, sit down for 5 months if you want this to go well. Of
Oh
course,
boy.
we want this to go well, but I can't sit still. And my husband's military man, walking around the house on eggshells. And because he's know I'm going stir crazy. So he gets these journals from the attic, and they're high school writing journals. And I'm like, I know more. I got all these degrees. I can write. No, I did not know more. I did not know. And you had to relearn it, but the gift was still there. And so for a period in my life, during the day, I was an engineer, from, I guess, 7 to 10. I'm mommy wife. Then I put those babies to bed, and I am a writer from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. And that was the better part of my life.
Wow. Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, I just have to go back and say I was a math minor and then I became a high school math teacher. So I agree with you. They will always People will always need math tutors. People will always need somebody who can help them with their calculus, and then you can, get your money that way and write on the side.
And you have superpowers. I hope you know that, because you are a math girly.
I love to meet a fellow writer who also loves math. So, but I'm also amazed that you were able to do your writing that late at night after such a long day. Talk about superpowers. Did you have any like special, you're like making coffee or eating chocolate, or how did you do that?
All of the above. I am a coffee fanatic. I love the good stuff. Give me a great espresso, a latte, with the perfect crema. Uh, but it's the passion. You get to a
Mm-hmm.
point where the stories will not leave you alone. They're in your head constantly. You're working on dialogue. You're supposed to be paying attention to other things. And so for me, it was a way of getting that out.
Yeah.
And the house is quiet, so it's me focused time. I'm not being pulled here and there and every which way, but take your vitamins. I'm not suggesting anybody do this at home. It can be draining, but to
Yeah.
me, the joy of writing the stories just kind of powered me through.
Yeah. Okay, so you were writing late at night after your day job, after your parenting duties, and were you thinking like, okay, I'm going to write something and I'm going to do it. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to get published, all of that.
Yeah, because when now I'm in this the serious throes of learning to write and starting to shop manuscripts, 2012-ish kind of time frame. Self-publishing is just beginning to grow. There were those naysayers when like, you're not a real writer unless you're traditionally published. So they set this expectation, based on this way of trying to box people in. You're this kind of writer if you do this, or you're
Hmm.
this level. So they set all these artificial things up, but that was the structure of the world, that time frame. So I was set. I'm gonna get an agent. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And it was a little bit of a harrowing journey, because once you've had agents at this time. Once again, we're talking about 13, 14 years
Yeah.
ago. The world significantly changes. And there were people who didn't feel novels focused on, Black history, Black women as the leads in the main love interest, the heroine of her own journey. They were used to best friend. They were used
Hmm.
to some, even slave narratives, because they believe without pain, a Black story won't sell. And so it was a very confusing time. And, things began to improve, but so did my craft. And I just said, you know what? I got an agent. Um, and we got some of the best rejections I've ever had in my life. We love this story. Does she have anything else? We love this story. We don't know how to market it. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I think that's the best answer because the worst thing you can do, because I've seen friends where they've got published, but the publisher didn't know how to market it. So it's
Yeah.
not the publisher's fault. It's your fault because nobody
Mm-hmm.
makes that nobody separates out, well, if the publisher had done X, Y, and Z, this book would have taken off. No, it's your fault.
There's so many
So,
ways that writers can internalize yeah. Mm-hmm.
oh, absolutely, Eva. And it I'm not trying to portray myself as evolved. I sucked a lot of rocks. I
Yeah. Yeah.
I had friends like, get out of the gutter, Vanessa. You got to shake this off.
Yeah.
Uh,
At the point when you had gotten the agent and you were
mhm.
shopping your books around, how many manuscripts had you written at that point? Do you remember?
Yes, because this is the sad part. I had written the first manuscript 125 times. Don't do that at home, kids.
Oh my goodness.
I got a horrible rejection, and to me as an engineer, I have to break apart the manuscript to focus on these different items. So one pass we're working on setting, one pass we're working on dialogue, one pass we're working on internal motivations,
Hmm.
fulfilling different character arcs. So it's like I had to serialize the process in my head so
Yeah.
that I could get it right. Don't do that at home. I should have done like most normal people and moved on to the next one. But that was kind of my process. I'm like, I've got to get this one right. So by
Yeah.
the time I got the agent, I was writing my second or third novel.
Okay.
But
Okay.
once again,
You had spent a lot of time on that person. I'm sure you learned a lot, you know? And I mean, in some ways, it makes sense. Like, I'm going to go through looking at just one aspect of it, maybe not 125 times. That seems like a little crazy.
a
Yeah.
little obsessive, right?
Yeah. But okay. Okay. So
Mhm,
your agent is shopping your
mhm,
manuscript around. You're
mhm.
getting these nice rejections, love it, but. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So tell me the next step.
So it became a point where you had to the when you're listening to the rejections, it's no longer a matter of the work. Like, unfortunately, if the characters were white, this would be a no-brainer in the mechanisms at the time knowing how to sell it. And they didn't believe I was writing Regency history, Georgian history, English narratives. They didn't believe that there was an audience for that.
Hmm.
They didn't realize that the first Harlequin Regency was written by a Black woman. Her name, as I look, Eva Rutland.
Oh,
The very first Harlequin, very successful. She wrote several of their Regency line. It's about knowing the history, it's about the mannerisms. And Black people were very well entrenched in the Regency era. People assume that it's another slave narrative. No, it's slavery in London was pretty
hmm.
much done by 1807, 1810 timeframe because of court cases. And there was upward mobility. There are Black millionaires. Prince Regent is hanging out with the black boxers and inviting them to his parties. So like these all these various levels. And then there were Prince William, future King William IV, has an affair with Dorothy Kirwan Thomas, a black woman millionaire from the Caribbean. So there's all this history that one could play with, but because no one knows it unless you've been digging in letters and
Hmm.
historical tomes, it was a very hard sell. So I took a chance on me. I'm like, I know I'm not the only nerd out here who loves these stories, who loves this point in time where people are all wanting freedom and they're wanting to be in love and they're wanting to improve their livelihood. It didn't really matter what skin color you were. Everybody had a background and a past and crazy family members and all these different things and I want to capture that in this particular time frame. So I began to self-publish. I believed in me, and as an engineer or not, you have to treat it like you are a publisher. So you are, even though you might have graphic skills, I'm hiring
Right.
a cover designer. I'm hiring layout people. I'm hiring series of editors, a developmental editor, a copy editor, a proofreader. You're going through all the steps. This is your book, your baby, and you're putting out there. And we started to gain traction. And I remember an editor from Entangled. This is probably around my 10th book, let's just say,
Hmm.
about my 10th
And
book out
sorry,
there.
can I interrupt? And had
Mhm.
you had to part ways with your agent in order to self-publish?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. So first book was traditionally published. Second book I get the agent. She can't sell it.
Hmm.
And she's asking me for more things, but she is very respectful. She's not trying to say change the complexion of your characters or write something else, more
Hmm.
mainstream kind of thing. She's wonderful. She's not doing any of that. But the market is saying this.
Right.
And it's because publishing, traditional publishing, did not believe in the readers. They didn't believe that people wanted these expansive stories or that they would singularly focus on a woman's journey that didn't necessarily look like them. I
Mm-hmm.
believed in readers from the beginning. And so I put my money where my mouth was. I became my own publisher. My mother actually was one of my first editors.
Oh,
So
nice.
so she was amazing, but I hired people, developmental, copy editing, proofreading, layout folks, cover designs, and we started, sell that journey. And so
Yeah.
about 4, 5, 6 novels later, I'm getting emails and DMs from editors at different publishing lines, like, "Hey, I read your novel. Would you like to write for us?" One particular one, she read one of my self-published novels, but she was with Entangled, part of Macmillan,
Hmm.
and then that becomes my Bride series. So it's the Bittersweet Bride, the Bashful Bride, the Butterfly Bride, and the Bewildered Bride. So if you're into alliteration, make sure you have enough for the titles. But
Right.
this is the first time my books now are getting spotlighted in Washington Post. Different media outlets are starting to cover it. And they're, wow, look at these stories. Publishers Weekly. I mean, it's just we're starting to get all this great coverage, and I wanted to expand my readership. So I
Hmm.
thought, let's try this traditional publishing again.
Hmm.
And I get this wonderful agent, Sarah Younger from the Nancy Yost Literary Agency. We hit it off. Like writers, if you're stuck, go to a conference because sometimes querying isn't the best thing. It's hard for them to figure things out. Sometimes it's still that one-on-one chemistry.
Yeah.
Sarah and I met. I went to a conference in Chicago, met a couple agents, but Sarah and I, we really hit it off. You need a partner who isn't not just for the deal. I have friends who get the deal first, then they go get an agent to negotiate it. So you're basically bringing money into on into the conversation.
Right.
They, they gotta love you. They gotta love
Yeah.
you. They gotta love your writing because when things get hard, when markets shift, if they didn't love you, if they're just there because you brought them a deal, it may not work out, and they
Hmm.
may not fight for you, and they may move on to the next person, and it's their right to do so. But I would suggest find somebody while you're broke, while you don't have while you
Right.
don't have nothing but your words on paper.
And they believe in you and they
They
believe in
believe
your stories. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So Sarah and I hit it off, and then we started getting the bigger deals. So we were Kensington. That's where I my one romance series, the Duke, the Lady, and the Baby. I will call it the romance that hit around the world. It's been translated in, oh my gosh, so many different languages: Portuguese. I think there's a Russian version, French. But it was so wonderful to see my stories being embraced around the world from the point of looking back where people were telling you, no, those readers don't exist.
Right.
And now you're seeing them and they look like all different kinds of people and they speak all different kinds of languages.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Yeah. So you had the first traditional publishing deal, and then you were getting a lot of no's. You went out on your own. You did self-publishing. You got some with Entangled, got some publishing deals with Entangled. Then you had your new agent and started traditional publishing again. That's wild. And I mean, you have so many books out. How many books are you writing and how often are they coming out? Because it seems like a lot.
Yeah. And that's the part you don't like when you write a lot, you don't realize that you're gonna have to be marketing a couple books in a year. That's hard. This year there's two books coming out. So we just had Fire, Sword, and Sea, which is William Morrow, HarperCollins, which is part of my historical fiction. But we have the third book in a romance series, A Gamble at Sunset, A Wager at Midnight. So this one is A Deal at Dawn. And
Okay.
it's little Russian English history focused on folks trying to solve the great blood disease, also known as sickle cell anemia, but set in the Regency.
Oh, interesting. So, yeah, because I know that romance novels tend to have a pretty quick turnaround, but most of your romance novels also historical?
Mhm.
So then you've got the research part on it. Yeah, I'm gonna say you have superpowers for sure, because tell me about your research process.
Okay, so in addition to the nerding and the mathing and all these sorts of things, I'm also a research nerd. So for years, I've been sitting on information, sitting on
Okay.
different types of ideas. So that I've about a good 10, 15 years worth of research on Regency because when I started and I wanted to write Regency stories or stories set between, let's say, the expanded time frame from 1750s to the 1830s, you were questioned about
Hmm.
the history. Folks really don't understand anything more than 1865, which is beyond the time period I'm talking about. There's a whole plethora of world and colonization and outreach and invention that happens. And so I made it my job to know everything between 1750 to 1830. Every war, every rebellion, even fractions within the Catholic Church between the Capuchins, the Franciscans. This was my world, right? So
Hmm.
when you're sitting on this and you're looking for how am I going to use different pieces of story, it's very easy as long as you stay within 1750 to 1830. You're not reinventing the wheel because the
Hmm.
mannerisms are not changing, the dress modes aren't changing. It's easier to write. Now, my romances are typically between 80 and 95,000 words, so they'll be a little bit beyond category, and that takes time. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to shortchange that thing, but I get a leg up because I'm sticking in that particular time period. Writing Fire Sword of Sea, which is set in the 1600s, oh my God, that hurt.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. You went
that
outside of your
hurt. That hurt because nothing is the same. Nothing's
Yeah.
the same. Pro tip: follow the money. Whenever you go to a time period, figure out how money works. Figure out how they buy things. What are they buying? How are they making money? And that will help you address 80% of the things you need to know.
Well, and I guess you also write a lot in series. So then it's like you have your characters and now you can kind of build on the first story. Is Fire, Sword, and Sea going to be part of a series?
Only if it's a television series.
Okay. Okay.
My historical fictions are standalone. So I find kind of how I break this up. Because women's history is so sparse. I mean, first person, we're very lucky to have Anne Frank's diary. You can find men's letters and men rat on themselves all the time. You find those everywhere. It's so hard to find historical information on women that's from them, that's from their perspective. So as I collect things, sometimes I'll get bits and pieces of people's lives, but it's not enough to tell their story. So those usually end up in a romance because I like the situation. There's a man, Caesar Picton. He realized rich people don't want to touch coal. So he dressed up really nice and got a wagon and he delivered coal in Mayfair, which is the rich, rich part of London. And he had two daughters who married extremely well. He had a beautiful house on the Thames. Can't find anything on the daughters. So I created their romance in the current series I'm talking about with A Deal at Dawn. Digging into the archives, I find interesting little tidbits like all the abolition movements stopped in 1806 when Haiti becomes free. It's kind of like, we're good with you guys having your freedom, but we don't know about y'all running a country. So we're just going to
Hmm.
sit back. And I imagined, what if you're a woman, a black woman, and you have some power and money because you've married very well, and you're in London and you thought the world was writing and it stopped. Well, obviously, you're going to try and get the abolition movement started. But then I throw in, but what if you're like Jessica Fletcher and everywhere you go, somebody dies? Well, in the background, you're trying to get the abolition movement started, but then you've got to solve these murder mysteries. So that leads in to the Lady Worthing series, and I'm able to bring you through all of the different fights of abolition and parliamentary movements, our backdrops to this really engaging whodunit kind of mystery.
Oh my gosh, fascinating.
Yes. But when I find a woman where I know where she was, where she did something very interesting, the way her life starts, or when it really starts. So, I'm not a cradle to grave writer. I need
Hmm.
to know that information from a historical perspective, but I will pick a great moment for when she becomes who she's going to become. And then I'm going to end on a high note where she has achieved maybe not the goal she thought she wanted at the beginning, but she's done something significant. She's changed lives. And I leave you on a high. That's my historical fictions. So I find those women who typically are hidden in plain sight and bring them back to you.
Where do you do most of your research? Are you doing most of it online these days? Or are you actually going into places and looking at, documents?
All of the above.
Okay.
So I have anytime I can purchase 100 or 300-year-old book, I will. I love first person narratives. I want to know what they were saying, what they were doing, what they were thinking. Letters, any kind. I love archivists, so I am in the rooms getting the little boxes,
Oh,
with the
fun.
happy gloves and leafing through things. Because you want that sense. And anytime I can go somewhere to walk where they walked, one of the
Mm.
most fabulous experiences I've ever had. I was in England, coastal cities, and Queen Marie Louise Covidad Christophe and her daughters lived in this house. Queen Marie is the only queen of Haiti. Her kingdom falls. She and her daughters are the only ones who escape. So we go to this beautiful house, and the little couple that owned it let us in. First of all, they let these total Americans who were walking around looking over your fence
Right.
at your, stuff. They let us in, and they had restored the house. So it was the actual pine floors, so you could feel the bounce when you
Oh,
walked.
wow. Hmm.
I got chills touching the banister, walking upstairs to her bedroom. And from her bedroom, you could look down and see her garden. And I knew she loved flowers, and so you get all these different sensory things that just enrich the scene you're writing. It was an amazing experience. That became the book Queen of Exiles, but being able to put that in and to feel it as you walk
Hmm.
through. So I'm an immersive writer. Anytime you can go there or touch it, taste it, experience it, do it. I actually went on a pirate ship, or a ship that could have been a pirate ship, off of the Florida Keys, just to feel, what does it feel like to walk on this deck or to be underneath, and how close are you to the hull, and or to the bottom of the boat where they would have had cargo. I
Yeah.
wanted to know these things.
Yeah, this is reminding me of a long time ago. I was writing a novel where there was a scene where the main character, for reasons, she was running barefoot through the street at night. And I had somebody ask me, "Well, Eva, have you done that? Have you run barefoot through your neighborhood at night?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Well, you might want to try it because it might help you." So I did. I felt very weird. I was like, "My neighbors are going to think I'm crazy," but I ran barefoot down my street at, like, 9 o'clock at night, not too late. But it really did. It helped me, like, oh, this is like, I'm getting the sensation on my feet. I'm hearing the noises. So yeah, I think that's a really good advice. Anytime you can experience or see what that person was seeing in your novel, you should.
Absolutely.
So at what point did you say, because for a while you were doing your engineering job and you were writing at night, at what point were you like, okay, I think writing is my career now and I'm gonna step back from my day job?
Honestly, the pandemic. The pandemic
Okay.
happened, and at this point, I'm running a boutique software firm, and many of my clients are shuttering. And then you almost have this leap of technology because, like, we're on Zoom now, and it's like a normal thing.
Yeah.
My portal software was somewhat organizing you, and so you can do distributed teams and things like that. Everything's like leaped ahead so fast, and really made some of the technology that we were leading on far behind now.
Mm.
So it's like circumstances happen, and then you're like, wait a minute. And at the same time, now my writing career is starting to take off in leaps and bounds. Like we talked about the schedule, the 2+
Yeah.
books, and the books that are coming out, and there's the books that you're writing. Like Fire, Sword, and Sea is book number 29. I just turned in book 31.
Oh my gosh.
So so it's like this continual, so it's like things happen for reasons.
Hmm.
And I loved my software company. I love working with my clients, but I love writing and I love being with readers. And so it was just time. And so now I'm a full-time author and loving it and scared at the same time and hearing my mother's voice. Are you paying the bills? Yes, Mom, I am paying the bills.
You've always got the engineering background to fall back on, but I don't think at this point, somehow I feel like this is it for you. You're in the author life now. How do you, okay, because you are writing multiple books a year, you're having to talk about, the books that are coming out. I know you also have your own podcast.
Mhm.
And I know you do sickle cell awareness. Like you do so many things. So how are you finding a balance? Or maybe you're not, but how are you attempting to find a balance?
I don't think there is a balance. I think that is a fallacy that they have told women that we need balance in our life. I think that in the moment, you have to give everything to that moment.
Mm,
Balance means, you this ideal thing that you're going to do everything equally and give everything equal amounts of time. Some things don't deserve your equal amounts of time.
mm,
But in those moments when you're with your children, when you're with your spouse, you're all in. You've
yeah.
got to be because they deserve it. And that's refilling your well. And when you're writing, you're all in. Maybe on the treadmill, I'm only 20% there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we have a tendency to do what we really want to do. So your mind will go to where you really want to put your heart at. Your energies will flow there. And I think getting your rest, hydrating, and doing physical exercise, put it all in. Don't worry about what's taking more time or those types of things until you have to if you're feeling exhausted. If you feel exhausted, you need to cut back. You need to find ways of cutting back. But if you're not exhausted, if you're energized,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for broke. You don't get a second back. Everything counts. And I think trying to find this mythical thing of balance is just another thing to make us always be seeking something else.
I like that idea of like whatever you're doing, just be fully in it. And because I know there are so many writers who have this guilt of like, oh, I should be writing right now, or like when you're writing, you're like, oh, I should be spending time with my children, or and just like whatever you're doing, just do it and be fully in it. I think that's good advice. Well, okay. I know that you have also been a consulting producer on film projects. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that came to be?
Yes. So in the industry, make friends.
Good.
Make
Yes. Good
friends,
advice.
take meetings. And so one time Tony Judkins, she had just joined Hallmark, Mahogany, and she was getting to know all of the different writers and seeing what types of projects and whatnot. And we had this really fun call, and she told me her secret project was to do Sense and Sensibility. And she was like, "Do you think we could film that in Philadelphia?" Yeah, sure. I was like, I couldn't in my head think Hallmark and Sense and Sensibility, but hey, people have dreams.
Right,
You
right.
never know.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, she calls me up. She's like, I got the go ahead. I can do Sense and Sensibility, and I need you because we're going to do this as the Dashwoods is a Black mixed race family, and we want to get the mannerisms right. We want to make sure the costuming and just everything. And you have the wealth of knowledge, particularly for Black individuals during this time, upward mobility. You bring it. I'm not going in to write this script. They have a script. I made suggestions for things that may have been that wouldn't have necessarily been in that time frame. So I'm,
Hmm.
nerd's gonna nerd out everywhere we go.
Right.
So a couple examples. They wanted to have a scene showing Edward and Eleanor bonding more. And the director wanted to make it casual, so they had him his coat off. He just had his tie and his waistcoat. And apparently, I'm told, I went screaming across the room, "No, don't do that! They would never be alone together like that."
So improper.
Right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is this wonderful team, they listened because everybody had the attitude to get it right. So Tia Smith, Kara Ehsan, the costume designer, Kim Kimball, the hair designer, every last wig in the movie. She's amazing. And Roger Bob was the director. So it was this phenomenal team. The actors were great. And it was, you talk to some of them, and some of them said, we never thought we'd be doing a Regency
Yeah.
because they never envisioned themselves being in a Regency because they didn't know that history. And then when, me, I'll run on and on and on about the history. And we did something magical. So if you ever get a chance to see Sense and Sensibility by Hallmark, we shot it in Bulgaria and Ireland. It was an amazing project. The costuming alone is, for me, I'm not a designer, but I will show you the colors that were available. I will show you the forms and the looks, but you will design whatever you're going to design. And Karasan, amazing. She from just her own designs. I think she made like 30 pieces in
Oh,
in
wow.
in like 4 weeks. I mean, it was an
Yeah.
insane thing. Plus, also used different warehouses from London to supplement that. To Kim Kimball, the braids, the chignons. I'm giving you the images from paintings of that time frame, and so that you can create the designs and the embellishments. There's not a piece or color that's not period accurate. And then my favorite part, we have a Bulgarian set designers. And when you walk into these ancestral homes, you would normally see portraits of ancestors on the wall. They wanted to use AI to do these portraits. And I was like, no, we can use real people. So General Dumas is on a wall. So if you ever watch the film,
Oh, cool.
you'll see Dito Bell, you'll see all of these famous Black individuals that were part of that period in time, or could be considered the ancestors or two or three generations from. Their pictures are on a wall.
Real portraits. Yeah. That's what a fun experience. Is there any chance? I mean, I know there's always a chance of any of your books getting turned into a film or a series.
Yes. So one of my books just got reoptioned.
Okay.
Where can't tell you which one, but
That's
one
okay.
just one just got reoptioned last week.
Oh, exciting. Well, because I know that, everything you're saying, it's making me think like historical, it is expensive, all the costumes and all of, getting all of those details right. But yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I had one book optioned by Longboat Productions, and Sony International had stepped in, but pandemic, writer strikes, all these things play in,
Yeah.
and the project got postponed and then shelved.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a new day, and hopefully we'll have a better success. It is a crapshoot. Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, okay. I know we're gonna be closing it up soon, but I want to just make sure, is there any other part of your writing and publishing journey we haven't talked about that you want to make sure that we talk about?
The journey has been long. It's had its high moments. It's had its crazy moments. It's had its moments where you were like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
Um, Writers are always going to find an outlet. So we talked about, my podcast, Rite of Passage. It's just essays.
Mm.
I applaud you people who go out and get interviews because that's nerve wracking, scheduling them. But for me, it's a writer has to write. And when the world's on fire, you have to write. And these essays, it was started out as my commitment. I'm going to write one essay a week so I don't
Mm.
explode.
Mm-hmm.
And by happenstance, I was on Substack. I was looking for an author newsletter functionality, and I realized that people were listening because I kind of just threw up a video. I think I threw up an audio or something, and I realized people were listening. And so then my daughter, who's also a night owl, "Hey, Ellen, let's get some theme music. Let's see if we can do." And it's worked out. Right now, we're about to cross 19,000 downloads in 56 episodes.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm always talking on the show about how much I love Substack, but I do. I love Substack that, you can do a podcast on Substack and it goes to all of the places. It goes to Apple, it goes to
Mhm.
Spotify. You can do video on there. I want to say you can connect it to YouTube. I haven't tried
You can
doing that.
connect it to YouTube, but you have to go back in and mess with the date. Once it gets over there, you've got to go mess with it.
Oh, good to know. Okay. Can you think of anything that has surprised you on your whole writing and publishing journey? And it could be a good surprise or a bad surprise or one of each.
Um, that when you write different genres, I write technically they're all historical, but historical mystery, historical romance, historical fiction. Those are three, oftentimes those are three different audiences. So you have to think about how are you relating to each of these audiences? How are you reaching them? Because sometimes that is even different. One of the reasons that I love doing the podcast is because it's current day. When you do all this historical, sometimes you feel a little distant or disconnected from present day. So it's a way to kind of merge the guys because I may reference something in the past, but in or look at today's lens through the past or something like that. So finding that connectivity is important. Marketing, as you know, is or publicity. I still quite don't know the difference between the two.
Same. I have a bookmarked something that breaks down the difference between the two because I can never remember.
Remember which one is which, but they're both
Yeah.
important.
Right. Yes, I know they're both important. Yes.
But that's your job, right? Even if you're self-published, you're traditional published, it's still your job. The time consumption of all of that. That's why I go back to you talked about balance. There's no balance. You just have to
Yeah.
do the things
Yeah.
that you feel like you need to do or that you want to do and go for broke.
Yeah. Well, you've given us a lot of tips already, but I always end each episode with a tip for the road for my listeners. And it can be a tip about writing or researching
Mhm,
or marketing and publicity or anything
mhm.
else that you want to impart to the listeners.
I'm going to say two things, and this was the two best pieces of advice that I've ever been given. So one is from Beverly Jenkins, and she's like, write the story. Don't listen to the noise, write the story. Your story is important. Whatever that story is, it is important. And from Kristen Higgins, she told me, write the most dangerous story you possibly can write. So don't pull your punches. Write the most incredible stretches, most research, whatever it is, write it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of reactions. Just write it and look at it because editing makes everything beautiful. If you're gifted to be able to put something and it's magically delicious on that first pass, Lord bless you.
Right.
For the rest of us, the magic happens in editing. And if you've already pulled your punches, you're limiting your magic. So write the most dangerous
Yeah.
thing you can.
I think it's Mary Cole, who is a former agent, who wrote something that I always think about, which is a lot of beginner writers don't write a big enough story. And that, yeah, you look for like, is my story big enough? But I like that, is my story dangerous enough too? And yeah, I definitely think about as I look back over my history of manuscripts, I think I keep getting bigger and more just go for it. Like you said, just like go all in and go for it. And don't be afraid of telling that dangerous story. Good piece of advice. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your clearly very busy author schedule to tell us about your whole saga and all of these books that now we have a very long to read list for sure.
Eva, thank you
So,
for having me. This has been fun.
thanks for listening to The Long Road to Publishing. Many of the books we discuss on the podcast can be found at my bookshop shop, the link for which is in the show notes. My guests' books and many of the resources we discuss on the show can also be found in the show notes. You can find me online on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack with the handle Eva Langston. Even better, subscribe to my free newsletter for writers at evalangston.substack.com and feel free to send me an email. The podcast address is longroad.pub@gmail.com. The Long Road to Publishing is produced and edited by me, Eva Langston, and the intro-outro music comes from the artist's sound roll on Upbeat. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and I'll be back soon with more publishing stories and more tips for the road.